When Operation Torch commenced on November 8, 1942, marking the Allied invasion of North Africa, there were 107,000 American and British troops involved in the operation. Among these forces were units from the 1st Infantry Division, the 1st Armoured Division, and the 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment, all of which had been equipped with the first bazookas that would see actual combat. The debut of this weapon in combat nearly turned catastrophic, though not because of any flaw in the weapon itself. Historians Michael and Gladys Green documented what happened. General Eisenhower made a discovery the night before the invasion that must have been alarming. The troops had received absolutely no training on this new weapon. The bazookas had arrived sealed in crates that were marked as secret, and accompanying these crates were orders not to open them until the operation actually began. There were no training materials included with the shipment. According to the after-action report from the 1st Infantry Division, soldiers found themselves having to figure out how the weapon operated while they were under fire. This wasn't the only problem they faced. Many of the early M6 rockets had been damaged by moisture during the sea voyage, which meant they either failed to fire entirely or detonated prematurely. The 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment reported that out of the first 20 rockets they fired in combat, only 7 functioned as they were supposed to. Despite encountering these significant problems, some units still managed to achieve success with the weapon. The combat log from the 1st Armoured Division for November 10, 1942, contains an entry recording that an anti-tank team had destroyed 2 Vichy French Renault tanks using the new rocket weapon near Port Lyautey. The log noted that the weapon proved effective when it was functioning properly. The Germans got their hands on American bazookas during the Battle of Kasserine Pass, which took place from February 14th to the 24th in 1943. Elements from the Afrika Korps' 10th and 21st Panzer Divisions overran American positions at a place called Sidi Bou Zid, and during this action they captured substantial quantities of equipment from the retreating US 2nd Corps. According to German military archives, 5 intact M1 bazookas, along with approximately 20 M6 rockets, were immediately sent to Berlin for analysis. The Wehrmacht weapons testing facility at Kummersdorf received these captured weapons on February 28, 1943. German technical reports from March of that year, which are now held in the Bundesarchiv, reveal what their assessment was. They described the American rocket launcher as representing a simple solution to infantry anti-tank capability. They noted it weighed 6 kilograms and that production requirements were minimal. Regarding effectiveness, they determined it could penetrate 80 millimeters of armor at 100 meters. Significantly, they concluded that this weapon could be mass-produced using basic industrial facilities. The Germans immediately set about developing their own version, but they decided to increase the warhead diameter from 60 millimeters to 88 millimeters. By September of 1943, their version, called the Panzerschreck, entered production. German production records show they manufactured 289,151 Panzerschrecks during the war. This was impressive, certainly, but it still fell far short of what American production achieved. Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily that began on July 10, 1943, marked a turning point where the bazooka matured as a weapons system. American forces by this time were fielding the improved M1A1 model, which featured better electrical contacts, and they also had the more reliable M6A1 rocket. The most notable success involving a bazooka in Sicily happened near a place called Biscari in July of 1943. According to reports from US Army Ordnance observers, a bazooka team from the 82nd Airborne Division achieved something extraordinary. They scored a hit on a Tiger I tank by penetrating through the driver's vision slot, which was one of the very few vulnerable points on that vehicle. While this represented exceptional marksmanship rather than typical performance, it demonstrated what the weapon's potential could be. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division's war diary for July 11, 1943, contains a note indicating that enemy infantry were equipped with rocket weapons capable of destroying armor at ranges between 100 and 150 meters. The diary entry stated that tank commanders needed to exercise increased caution in urban areas. Colonel James Gavin, who commanded the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, reported that the bazooka had given American infantrymen confidence when facing enemy armour. He stated that in Sicily they destroyed 17 German tanks using bazookas, and he noted that the psychological effect exceeded even the physical destruction they achieved. During the Italian campaign that began in September of 1943, the bazooka evolved from being simply an anti-tank weapon into becoming a universal problem solver. The mountainous terrain and medieval towns throughout Italy provided ideal conditions for employing the bazooka. The December 1943 Battle for Ortona demonstrated just how versatile the weapon could be. According to Canadian military records, bazooka teams developed what they called mouse-holing tactics, where they would blow passages through buildings rather than using the dangerous streets. The war diary from the 1st Canadian Infantry Division recorded that American rocket launchers proved invaluable in street fighting and were used against fortified houses with good effect. By January of 1944, American production had reached 20,000 bazookas monthly. The M9 model had been introduced by this point, featuring a breakdown design that made it suitable for airborne troops, and it used magneto-ignition which eliminated the need for batteries. The M6A3 rocket had a blunt nose that prevented deflection when it struck angled armour. Reports from the 5th Army during the Italian campaign documented that every infantry battalion now possessed between 24 and 36 bazookas. The weapon had become standard equipment, as common as machine guns in the infantry's arsenal. The proliferation of bazookas throughout American units forced fundamental changes in how the Germans conducted armoured operations. Wehrmacht Training Directive 4318, which was issued in December of 1943, mandated that tanks would not operate in urban areas without infantry support. The directive required that all buildings be cleared before armour advances and specified a minimum distance of 100 metres from any uncleared structures. It also mandated that Schürzen, which were side skirts, had to be maintained on all vehicles. German tank crews began welding extra track links, sandbags, and even concrete to their vehicles to gain additional protection. The Zimmerit anti-magnetic paste that was applied to German tanks from December of 1943 to October of 1944 was partially a response to the threat posed by shaped charge weapons. A captured document from the 2nd SS Panzer Division, dated March of 1944, stated that American rocket launchers were present in every infantry unit and that speed and shock tactics were no longer viable. The document concluded that methodical advance with infantry screening was now required. By the time D-Day arrived on June 6, 1944, the bazooka had become integral to how American infantry units were organized. Among the 156,000 Allied troops landing in Normandy were thousands of bazooka teams equipped with the latest M9A1 model, which featured an optical sight. The bocage country of Normandy, with its dense hedgerows creating natural defensive positions, proved ideal for bazooka employment. First Army records show that in the 6 weeks following D-Day, bazookas accounted for 12% of German armoured vehicle losses in the American sector. The after-action report from the 29th Infantry Division for June and July of 1944 noted that bazooka teams operating in hedgerow country achieved high success rates against enemy armour. They also noted that German tanks were increasingly reluctant to advance without extensive infantry reconnaissance. German production records reveal the industrial reality that lay behind their response to the bazooka threat. The Panzerschreck, while technically superior with its 88mm warhead capable of penetrating 160mm of armour versus the bazooka's 100mm, was more complex to manufacture. Looking at production comparisons from German and American archives, the Panzerschreck weighed 24 pounds and required 18 man-hours to produce at a cost of 150 Reichsmarks. The Bazooka M9 weighed 15 pounds, required only 2.4 man-hours to produce, and cost $25. By August of 1944, America had produced over 400,000 bazookas. Germany managed to produce 289,151 Panzerschrecks during the entire war. The Americans were outproducing German copies by nearly 2 to 1, while simultaneously producing simpler, more portable weapons. The German Ardennes offensive in December of 1944 provided severe testing of the bazooka under winter conditions. Combat interviews from the 99th Infantry Division, which were conducted immediately after the battle, documented numerous bazooka engagements. Technical Sergeant Donald Bracken from the 394th Infantry Regiment reported destroying a Panther tank near Rocherath on December 17, 1944. He stated that the rocket hit the rear engine deck, the tank caught fire, and the crew abandoned it. The range was about 75 yards. The extreme cold created documented problems for the weapon. Battery failures in the remaining M1A1 models that were still in service required soldiers to warm batteries inside their jackets. The 2nd Infantry Division reported that rocket propellant burned differently in sub-zero temperatures, which affected both range and accuracy. Despite encountering these challenges, records from the 18th Airborne Corps show that bazookas destroyed or disabled 89 German armoured vehicles during the Battle of the Bulge. One of the most remarkable uses of the bazooka came from Major Charles Carpenter of the 4th Armoured Division. As documented in his Silver Star citation and confirmed by multiple witnesses, Carpenter mounted 6 M9 bazookas on his L-4 Grasshopper observation aircraft. His combat record, which was verified by 4th Armoured Division records, shows that on September 20, 1944, he destroyed 2 Panther tanks near Aracourt. In October of 1944, he destroyed 1 Panzer IV. In November of 1944, he destroyed 3 armoured vehicles. Carpenter's aircraft, complete with the mounting brackets for the bazookas, was discovered in an Austrian museum in 2017 and has since been restored. His innovation demonstrated how versatile the weapon could be beyond conventional infantry use. The final production statistics from U.S. Army Ordnance records paint a picture of massive industrial output. For the M1 model, they produced 112,790 units. The M1A1 saw approximately 60,000 units produced. The M9 had 26,087 units. The M9A1 had approximately 277,800 units. The M18 aluminum version had 500 units. The total came to 476,628 units. Rocket production figures are equally impressive. In 1942, they produced 125,000 rockets. 1943 saw 2,847,000 rockets produced. 1944 brought 8,566,000 rockets. 1945 added 4,065,000 rockets. The total rocket production was 15,666,000 rockets. Looking at unit costs in 1945, the M9 bazooka cost $19.25. The M6A3 rocket cost $8.85. A complete system consisting of a launcher plus 10 rockets cost approximately $110. For comparison, according to German production records, a Panzer IV tank cost 103,000 Reichsmarks, which was approximately $41,000. A Panther tank cost 117,000 Reichsmarks, approximately $47,000. A Tiger I tank cost 250,000 Reichsmarks, approximately $100,000. The U.S. Army Ordnance conducted extensive analysis of bazooka effectiveness in 1945. Their findings revealed that the average engagement range was 75 yards. At 50 yards, the hit probability was 85%. At 100 yards, it dropped to 42%. At 150 yards, it was only 18%. Armour penetration with the M6A3 rocket ranged from 3.5 to 4 inches, which translated to 89 to 102 millimetres. Tank destruction analysis from the European theatre based on First Army records shows an interesting breakdown. Tanks destroyed by other tanks accounted for 38%. Tanks destroyed by anti-tank guns made up 31%. Aircraft destroyed 14% of tanks. Bazookas accounted for 12% of tank destructions. Mines were responsible for 5%. These statistics likely understate bazooka effectiveness because many German tanks were abandoned when threatened by rocket teams rather than actually being destroyed. Post-war interrogations of German officers, which were conducted by the US Strategic Bombing Survey, revealed consistent themes about the bazooka's impact. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, who had commanded German forces in Italy, stated in his interrogation that American rocket launchers forced fundamental changes in German tactical doctrine. He acknowledged that the speed and shock tactics that had brought victory from 1940 to 1941 were negated by the threat of infantry anti-tank weapons. General Heinz Guderian, in his post-war writings, acknowledged that the proliferation of infantry anti-tank weapons like the bazooka invalidated the independent operation of armour that had been central to German doctrine. The bazooka threat influenced German tank development from 1943 onward. German armoured vehicle production records show the addition of Schürzen side skirts to Panzer III and IV models starting in April of 1943. They began applying Zimmerit paste from September of 1943. The Panther AOSF-G model received increased side armour. They developed infantry support variants with enhanced anti-personnel armament. These modifications added weight and complexity to German vehicles, reducing their mobility advantage while American tanks remained relatively simple and reliable. Lend-Lease records document how bazookas were distributed to Allied forces. The Soviet Union received 8,000 units. The United Kingdom got 12,000 units. Free French forces received 15,000 units. Chinese nationalist forces were sent 3,000 units. Other Allied nations received 23,628 units. Soviet military archives indicate that the Red Army found the bazooka effective, but they preferred their own anti-tank rifles and later developed the RPG-2, which was partially based on bazooka principles. While less publicized than European use, bazookas proved valuable in the Pacific theater as well. Marine Corps records from Saipan, covering June to July of 1944, show that bazookas destroyed 28 Japanese tanks and countless fortified positions. The weapon's versatility was demonstrated through various rocket types. The M6A3 was the standard anti-tank HEAT round. The M10 was a white phosphorus incendiary and smoke round. The M7A3 was a practice round. Marine units particularly valued white phosphorus rockets for clearing cave complexes and destroying Japanese bunkers. At Iwo Jima, the 5th Marine Division expended 1,847 bazooka rockets. The bazooka's continued relevance was proven in Korea when initial M9A1 bazookas proved inadequate against T-34-85 tanks due to degraded ammunition. However, the rapid development and deployment of the M20 Super Bazooka with its 3.5-inch rocket demonstrated the weapon system's adaptability. Marine Sergeant Robert Bennett's combat report from Pusan in September of 1950 stated that the new 3.5-inch bazookas stopped T-34s cold, achieving first shot, first kill at 125 yards. The psychological shift was immediate. This rapid adaptation from problem identification to solution deployment in under 90 days demonstrated the flexibility inherent in the simple bazooka design. The bazooka embodied American industrial philosophy during World War II. Analysis of production methods reveals the manufacturing simplicity. Any factory with basic welding equipment could produce the tubes. No special alloys or precision machining were required. Assembly time was just 2.4 man-hours per unit. Training time for assembly workers was only 2 days. Distribution efficiency was remarkable. By 1944, every US infantry company had 5 bazookas. Every infantry battalion had between 25 and 35 bazookas. Ammunition was readily available through standard supply chains. This contrasted sharply with German production philosophy, which emphasized technical superiority over quantity. The Wehrmacht's focus on complex, high-performance weapons limited their production capacity and field maintenance capability. U.S. Army training records document the bazooka's impact on infantry doctrine. Before the bazooka in 1941, infantry anti-tank training focused on anti-tank rifles that were ineffective against medium tanks, anti-tank grenades that required suicidal close-range attacks, and Molotov cocktails, which were desperate measures. After the bazooka became standard from 1943 to 1945, every infantry soldier received training in bazooka operation through a 2-hour basic course, along with training in tank hunting tactics and coordinated anti-tank defense. The psychological transformation was documented in infantry school reports, which noted that the bazooka had given the infantry soldier confidence against armor, and that previous tank panic had been replaced by aggressive tank hunting. Combat units developed innovative bazooka tactics that were documented in after-action reports. For urban combat, they used multiple team coordination, with one team drawing attention while another attacked from the side. They employed snow camouflage for approach in winter conditions and focused on targeting engine compartments for fire kills. Cost-effectiveness analysis from Army Ordnance reveals striking comparisons for destroying one German tank. Using tanks meant an average of 2.5 Shermans lost per German tank destroyed, which translated to approximately $187,500 in tank losses. Using anti-tank guns meant a gun and crew training cost of approximately $45,000. Using aircraft, including aircraft losses and munitions, cost approximately $85,000. Using bazookas, with an average of 5 rockets and occasional launcher loss, cost approximately $50. This 1,000-to-1 cost advantage made the bazooka economically revolutionary. For the price of one Sherman tank at $75,000, the Army could purchase 3,000 bazookas and 20,000 rockets. The bazooka principle of simple, man-portable anti-tank weapons became universal in military doctrine. Direct descendants include the M72 Law-Light anti-tank weapon, the AT-4 anti-tank weapon, the Carl Gustav recoilless rifle, and the Soviet RPG series. Over 40 nations produced bazooka variants or copies. The fundamental concept of giving infantry portable anti-tank capability remains central to military organization worldwide. The German Tank Museum at Munster includes a permanent display on anti-tank weapons featuring the American bazooka. Their official placard states that the American M1 rocket launcher revolutionized anti-tank warfare, describing it as simple, cheap, and effective, capable of being operated by any soldier with minimal training. The placard notes that German forces captured examples in Tunisia in 1943 and immediately recognized its potential, developing the Panzerschreck in response. It concludes by stating that by war's end, the presence of bazookas in every American unit had neutralized German armored superiority. The bazooka underwent continuous improvement based on combat feedback. The M1 from June of 1942 was the original version with battery ignition, with 112,790 produced. The M1A1 from June of 1943 featured a reinforced tube and improved contacts, with approximately 60,000 produced. The M9 from October of 1943 had a 2-piece design and magneto ignition, with 26,087 produced. The M9A1 from June of 1944 featured an optical sight and improved coupling, with approximately 277,800 produced. The M18 from April of 1945 used aluminum construction, with 500 produced before war's end. Rocket development paralleled launcher improvement. The M6 had a pointed nose and could achieve 3 inches of penetration. The M6A3 featured a blunt nose preventing deflection and achieved 4 inches of penetration. The M10 was a white phosphorus warhead. The M7A3 was a practice round. The U.S. Army Military History Institute's comprehensive 1962 study concluded that no single weapon changed battlefield dynamics more than the rocket launcher M1 and M9 bazooka. It democratized anti-tank warfare, giving every infantry unit the capability to defeat armor. The German development of their own rocket weapons in response validated the concept. In terms of cost-effectiveness, tactical impact, and strategic significance, the bazooka ranks among the most important weapons of World War II. Analysis of German operational records reveals the bazooka's strategic effect. Before the bazooka from 1940 to 1942, German armor operated independently with confidence, infantry fled from approaching tanks, and breakthrough and exploitation tactics succeeded. After the bazooka from 1943 to 1945, armor required constant infantry support. Every building and hedgerow became a potential ambush site, and breakthrough operations became costly and slow. This operational shift, documented in Wehrmacht war diaries, fundamentally altered the dynamics of the European battlefield. The bazooka production represented American industrial capability at its peak. In March of 1945, during peak production, they produced 42,000 launchers and 540,000 rockets. This involved 237 subcontractors across 34 states with production facilities. This distributed production model made the supply chain resilient. No single bombing raid or sabotage could significantly impact bazooka availability, unlike German production, which was concentrated in vulnerable facilities. The bazooka's simplicity enabled its widespread adoption. Training records show the average soldier achieved basic proficiency in 2 hours. Combat proficiency was typically achieved after 5 practice rounds. No special physical training was required. Comparing the bazooka to other anti-tank weapons of the era reveals its advantages. The British PIAT weighed 32 pounds, had limited range of only 100 yards versus the bazooka's 300 yards, suffered reliability issues in wet conditions, and had a complex spring mechanism requiring strength to cock. The Soviet PTRD anti-tank rifle weighed 38 pounds, had limited effectiveness against medium tanks, produced severe recoil requiring sturdy soldiers, and was single-shot requiring precise marksmanship. The German Panzerfaust was a single-use disposable weapon with very short range of 30 to 60 meters, no sighting system, and a dangerous backblast area. The bazooka offered the best combination of portability, effectiveness, range, and reusability. The bazooka's strategic impact extended beyond tactical employment into force structure, enabling lighter and more mobile infantry divisions. For logistics, it meant simple ammunition supply compared to anti-tank guns. For training, it enabled rapid conversion of civilians into tank hunters. Psychologically, it transformed infantry from victims to hunters. Economically, it offered a massive cost advantage over traditional anti-tank weapons. These factors combined to give American forces a significant advantage in combined arms operations. The bazooka succeeded through simplicity rather than sophistication. While Germany developed technically superior weapons, America's ability to mass-produce and widely distribute good enough technology proved decisive. By war's end, virtually every American infantry squad possessed anti-tank capability. This proliferation of firepower to the lowest tactical level exemplified American military doctrine, trusting the citizen soldier with powerful weapons and the training to use them effectively. The Germans had entered World War II with the world's most powerful armoured forces, their tanks dominating battlefields from Poland to France. They were ultimately defeated in part by American teenagers carrying steel tubes that cost less than a bicycle. The bazooka proved that in modern industrial warfare, the ability to mass-produce and distribute simple, effective weapons could overcome technical superiority. It demonstrated that innovation didn't require complexity, and that sometimes the best solution was the simplest one that could be manufactured by the thousands. The bazooka's development from Edward Uhl's improvised tube with coat hanger sights to a weapon that helped defeat Nazi Germany represents American industrial democracy at its finest. In just 3 years, from May of 1942 to May of 1945, American factories produced 476,628 bazookas and over 15 million rockets, fundamentally altering the nature of ground combat. The weapon's impact was both physical and psychological. Physically, it gave infantry the power to destroy tanks at practical combat ranges. Psychologically, it transformed soldiers from potential victims into active hunters. German armoured forces, which had revolutionised warfare with blitzkrieg tactics, found themselves slowed to a crawl by the threat of rocket teams hidden in every building, hedgerow and pile of rubble. The bazooka succeeded not through technical sophistication, but through practical simplicity. It could be manufactured quickly, distributed widely, and operated effectively by any soldier with minimal training. This combination of simplicity, effectiveness, and mass production embodied the American approach to warfare, overwhelming the enemy through industrial might rather than tactical brilliance alone. Today, every military in the world equips its infantry with portable anti-tank weapons that are direct descendants of the bazooka principle. The fundamental concept of giving the individual soldier the power to defeat armoured vehicles remains as relevant now as it was when Lieutenant Edward Oule fired that first rocket from his improvised launcher at Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1942. The bazooka was more than just a weapon. It was democracy made manifest in steel and explosives. It proved that free workers in American factories could produce simple weapons in such quantities that they would overwhelm the products of German engineering. It validated the American faith in the citizen soldier, trusting ordinary men with extraordinary firepower. The Germans were shocked to discover that their vaunted armoured forces could be stopped by a simple tube that cost less than a week's wages for a factory worker. But that shock revealed a fundamental truth about modern warfare. In an industrial conflict, the nation that can produce the most weapons and distribute them most widely will prevail over the nation that produces the most sophisticated weapons in limited quantities. The bazooka was proof that American ingenuity and mass production could triumph over complexity and craftsmanship. From the beaches of Normandy to the mountains of Italy, from the hedgerows of France to the forests of the Ardennes, the bazooka gave American soldiers the tool they needed to stand against German armour. That simple tube, born from scrap metal and coat-hanger wire, helped write the final chapter of the Third Reich, one rocket at a time. The weapon that started as an improvised demonstration piece became one of the most influential military innovations of the 20th century, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary changes come not from elaborate engineering, but from elegant simplicity combined with the industrial capacity to produce it in overwhelming numbers.